Well, hi there, and welcome along to Jump to It in association with irishracing.com. Coming up on today's show, of course, there'll be lots of action to get stuck into with Ayr taking centre stage for the Coral Scottish National Meeting. Of course, Newbury has a pretty good card too. Lots of stuff in Ireland, which we'll be keeping a close eye on. And our Irish racing editor, Vincent Finegan, will be doing so. Intrinsically, has to be said. Also, Stephen Harris, I'd like to bring in from bettingexpert.com. How are you, Stephen? How's your weekend been?
Yeah, keeping well, Ed. It's a funny time of year, isn't it? A bit of a crossover between the jumps and the flat. Can be quite a dangerous time for punters. I think the ground, sort of April showers time, aren't we? I know Wetherby early in the week started on good and it was heavy by about 2 o'clock. So you've got to sort of play late and make your selections once you know what the ground's going to be like, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. A few scattered showers around, shall we say. By and large, ground conditions are riding a lot more good than anything in them at the moment, it would seem. Vincent, I mentioned the lot of Irish stuff kind of going up a gear this weekend with Leopardstown on the cards. Also, on a side note, news this week from Joseph O'Brien, that perhaps he's going to be scaling back some of his National Hunt horses and the whole National Hunt operation over the next couple of seasons or so.
Yeah, I suppose he has been doing that for the last couple of seasons anyway. He started off, he was probably 50-50 jumps and flat, I suppose, in the beginning. He had a huge amount of JP McManus cast-offs from Ballydoyle that he trained in the first couple of seasons. There's a lot less of them now. I noticed it's interesting that this weekend with the likes of Leopardstown now on the flat, we've Henry de Bromhead with runners in some of the classic trials and that type of thing. So maybe he's heading in that direction too. I don't know. But Joseph, I'm sure he'll still be trying to jump horses for a few years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fair to say. Yeah, so lots of good action this weekend to look forward to. As I mentioned earlier, let's have a look at those races. Well, we're going to head to Ayr straight away for the 150, which is the CPMS Novices Champion Handicap Chase over the 3 miles. 8 runners due to go to post here. Stephen, you can kick us off with this one. I find this race a real head-scratcher for the sense that A, I have no idea whether Dusart's well handicapped off of 147. And B, we were all there at Cheltenham that day, or we watched Cheltenham on that Wednesday, the Brown Advisory. The ground was absolutely bottomless. And I was there next to the unsaddling enclosure. He came in drunk after that. It's 2.5 weeks. Can he back the effort up? I mean, he looks the potential class act in here. How do you sum this race up?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I'm a sort of old fogey, Ed, as you well know. And I used to think that once they'd had a run at Cheltenham, you don't want to be with them next time, especially not a couple of weeks afterwards. And as you say, that day was that we had 5 different ground conditions, didn't we, over the 4 days at Cheltenham. That was the day it was heavy. Day one, it was on the quicker side of good. But Dusart finished unconscious. I mean, he's not a fluent jumper. He won at, I remember, Leicester, and he propped left at every fence, which, I mean, I put it down to Nico de Boinville, but perhaps it was Dusart. He does want to go left-handed. He probably does want better ground. Most of Henderson's do. I couldn't dream of being with him at 5-2. He's handicapped probably on maybe more on reputation and hurdling form rather than those small field wins over fences where he didn't particularly impress. He could still improve, but he'd have to be a tough warrior to get through that Cheltenham run so quickly. I think the one I like was Doyen Breed, who's trained by Sandy Thompson, a yard I really like. Traditionally, the northern horses, when they come down south, struggle, and this was a similar story at Ascot last time. But I think if you watch the run back, Doyen Breed was dropped out in a very poor position, and the winner, Does He Know's a useful tool, and Doyen Breed never really got warm. He made a few mistakes, and he was soon well behind. But he ran okay. He got beaten 14 lengths. I think he's going to carry on improving as his jumping improves, and he should go really well. He was 12-1 earlier in the week. I think he's now 7 or 8, which is probably nearer his chance. But it is one of those races you do think you should be having a bet. There's 8 runners. I'm not keen on Dusart, who's not a fluent jumper, who's 5-2. So maybe Doyen Breed each way is the one.
Doyen Breed for Stephen there. Vincent, you got an input on this race, or are you happy to swerve it?
I'd agree with mostly what Stephen has said, particularly around this the bounce factor after Cheltenham. You find this year after year, horses come out within a few weeks of Cheltenham, and a lot of them run poorly. We even see it at Aintree. Horses that look to machines in Cheltenham can get beaten in Aintree a few weeks later. For me, I don't know. I'd be staying against Dusart. The other one for me that I wouldn't like, even though it's much a big improver, is this Sounds Russian, the Ruth Jefferson horse. It's all heavy ground form. small fields as well. The last 8 was a 3-runner race at one. But it has been improving. It's going up the ratings at the same time at an equal pace, I suppose. So I'd be against that at 4-1 particularly. Wouldn't put anyone off the one that Stephen suggests. Doyen Breed, definitely there's a race in that. 1-4-1 looks a fair handicap mark. It's a course and distance winner as well.
Yeah, indeed. I think so. Overall, we're pretty much all against the Nicky Henderson hot pot. So watching bolt up by distance now, I think it is fair to say on the back of that. Moving on to the 225 on your card, of course, is the Coral Scottish Champion Hurdle, Grade 2, limited handicap here. West Cork heads the market around 11-4. Last year's winner Milkwood, 7-2. One more for the Road 4s, and then you're going 7s bar. Stephen, last year's winner, the current favourite, or something else?
No, I'm really keen on Milkwood. And again, the price is a bit gone. He's down to about 4-1-ish now. This is another classic, isn't it? He's fresh. These are his absolute optimum conditions. Neil Mulholland, a trainer who'd had a disappointing few months after Christmas, but is now back in the groove. And he's another trainer who does really well in the spring and summer. Most of his horses seem to be strong travellers with a turn of foot. They're not sluggards in the mud. And Milkwood was so impressive in this last year. And I think this is a lesser race. He's on this occasion. He's been trained for the race. He's been off for 181 days. That's a big positive at this time of the season. He wants goodish ground. It's good to softer air at the moment with the odd shower forecast. So everything's in place. The only negative is his price has halved in the last week. But West Cork comes here on the back of a really hard race at Cheltenham. Dan Skelton continues in great form. He's 10 winners in the last fortnight at 21%, flying along. I respect West Cork, but I think he might have had the edge taken him off Cheltenham. And all the others are horses like One More for the Road, Barrichello, Alkmaar, whose handicap marks have gone up by 1 stone or 2 stone for winning much, much lesser races. They've had long campaigns throughout the winter, and I think Milkwood is the fresh now horse with everything ideal. Yeah, indeed. Milkwood, last year's winner, to follow up again this time round off an £8 higher mark for the Sam Tristan Davis Noah Mulholland team. Vincent, John McConnell's got a run in here. Anna Bonina, what do you make of that individual's chances?
Well, like she's been out of form to some extent this season, but having said that, you only have to go back to this race last year. Milkwood beat her 3 3/4 lengths, and she was receiving £7 last year. This time she receives £20, so she's £13 better off for 3 3/4 lengths. Has to have a chance. There's been a few quid for her over the last 24 hours or so. She won't be too far off favourite by the time this ends up, I think, with Milkwood. Like, Milkwood looks strong. Milkwood was second in a Galway hurdle last July as well. I wouldn't put anyone off Milkwood, but if you're back in Milkwood, you should definitely be thinking about having a saver and Anna Bonina.
Yeah, I mean, what do we make with West Cork? Is it just the bounce factor, which, 2 weeks away, similar kind of argument to Dusart, Stephen? I suppose different ground. The ground was pretty nice on the Friday. Nonetheless, West Cork's form, in behind pretty much Grade 1 horses in that county hurdle, essentially, it is pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's only maybe I'm talking nonsense. He's only had 3 runs the whole season, so it's not like he's been on the go every week. It's just that I know he was trained for Cheltenham. That was the plot for the day. And this time of year, Ed, I think a lot of these runs are afterthoughts, aren't they? They're just because they ran well at Cheltenham. Let's run them again. So that we're not going to be doing anything as soon as the ground goes from about May through to September. So they know they're going to have 4 or 5 months off. Let's just have another run. And I suspect West Cork, it's a bit of an afterthought. I doubt it was in first and foremost in Dan Skelton's mind. And of course, the race at Cheltenham was won by the Irish Plot of Mullins, wasn't it? I mean, that one with about 2 stone in hand. It was in the car park the whole way round against the hair rail and absolutely bolted up. I mean, it didn't have the smoothest of trips, and it must have had at least 1 stone in hand. So perhaps those in behind, it might not be quite as good as it looks.
Yeah, Statesman, was the preview night horse, wasn't he? But he absolutely delivered in the county hurdle. Moving on to the 3 o'clock, which is the future champions Novices Chase. Small field, pretty poor turnout, if I may say. So just the 5 going to post. Nonetheless, it's a trappy and intriguing encounter, and not much separating them on official ratings, Stephen, and not a lot separating them in the betting either. Manila Drama, do your job, vying for favouritism here. Il Redito 4-1, Kilteely Briggs 5, Jacamar 11-2. Which way are you going?
Now, this is like one of those sort of greyhound bags races, isn't it? There's only 5 runners rather than 6, but it looks sort of 3-7-2 the field to me. I mean, I've gone for Jacquemart without any real confidence. I like the fact that the boys on it, Bastion replacing Paddy Brennan, although Paddy Brennan won on it last time, so that's probably not very fair, but he's a very, very good jockey. Milton Harris had a brilliant season. Jacquemart wants decent ground, always is produced late. I mean, he's not really my idea of a Saturday horse. He tends to run at sort of Wincanton and round the places midweek, but this is a substandard race. There's a couple who want to lead, do your job, probably Manila Drama, maybe Kilteely Briggs, and I know that Jacquemart will get a hold-up ride, probably sit last, wants decent ground. Perhaps he'll do them for pace after the last. He was quite impressive the other day in a much lesser race, but this is a small stake, very, very hard race, this.
Yeah, indeed. I thought Do Your Job looked happy up at 2.5 miles last time out. I think there's more to come from that individual. Vincent, a trappy encounter for yourself?
Yeah, it looks very trappy. One thing to note here is the top three in the race, Manila Drama, Kilteely Briggs and Do Your Job, are all ex-Irish pointers. They've all done well since they've gone to the UK. The interesting thing with Manila Drama, his claim to fame, is the fact that he finished second to Sir Gerhard in a point-to-point. He was beaten 12 lengths or something on his debut. The one I do like here, if I was to have a bet, was the only previous course winner in the race, which is Do Your Job. I think that could run them ragged from the front, but it is a trappy little race with 5 horses.
Yeah, indeed. Stephen, just coming back to Manila Drama, I was really disappointed with him at Kempton last time out. There seemed to be everything in his favour in that race behind the Paul Nicholls horse, Pick Dorey. But he just seemed to kind of go out with a bit of a whimper there. I mean, does that put alarm bells against that horse now?
Yeah, you would be right. Pick Dorey went on to win the race. I think I did my money in running there. I'm not a massive fan of Pick Dorey. I think he's a bit of everything's best on the bridle, but he saw off Manila. I mean, I just think it's the classic. Whenever McCain sends something down south of about Warwick, you can't find, they're falling out the back of your TV. The class divide is so big. I mean, somebody was saying to me, Brian Hughes, who's I think is on 188, he might even be more than that by the time this show goes out, it'd probably be 190 odd winners, but he's probably ridden about 5 anywhere south of, anywhere south of Warwick, basically. I mean, he's a brilliant jockey. Manila Drama was disappointing. He hasn't had that many runs this season, and McCain is absolutely incredible. He seems to have 2 or 3 winners every single day, but he has got a little bit to prove, and he probably won't be able to lead, I wouldn't have thought, which he wants to do.
Yeah, fascinating race. So just very finally on this contest, Il Radito for the Paul Nicholls team, maybe a little bit overlooked here. This is an individual. Nicholls has a great record in this race. He won it 5 times in the last 13 years or so. It promised a lot early season, Il Radito, and then it kind of fizzled out to some extent. Again, Vincent, would you think this is a bit of an afterthought here, or do you think this is a feasible opportunity for him?
Oh, it's definitely an opportunity. It probably is an afterthaught as well, but it's definitely an opportunity. It's a small field. Anything can happen here. I don't think there's any standout performer in it, to be honest. Yeah,
absolutely. I think we're all in agreement. It's probably the trickiest race, even though there's only the 5 runners, arguably the trickiest one to fathom of the lot. Moving on to the 3:35, which of course is the big one, the Coral Scottish Grand National. 4 miles to go here. 27 fences, 24 going to post. We haven't got the full size field of 30, which could have been for this. Nonetheless, should be a great spectacle. Stephen, kick us off here. Kitty's Light and Win My Wings. Christian Williams, double-handed at the top of the market here with his 2 representatives. And then you're into Stormy Judge, the Ferry Master, Major Dundee, 11-1, Ashtown Lad, 12s, Cool Mix, 12s, 14s Bar. Do you think this race lies with Christian Williams?
I don't, actually. I think they're both underpriced now. Kitty's Light was given a brilliant ride to finish second behind Captain Ord, stablemate at Kempton last time. The problem with Kitty's Light, I think it's a he, by the way. I always think Kitty's Light, I go to say she.
It's a mare, yeah.
And it is a he. Jumping is the concern, and they will go proper gallop rally. I know it's 4 miles, but Kitty's Light is not a natural jumper. Needs sort of coaxing round. I think the triple suit Kitty's Light fine, but I'm worried that the sort of half lengths round air at a really fast pace. They tend to get strung out all over Scotland, and I think that one might be struggling from an early stage. Win My Wings landed a wholesale gamble in the Ida at Newcastle and has only gone up £8. And if you watch the run back, again, it was a brilliant ride. Everything went right in the right place up the inside. I'm not sure an £8 high mark does make life harder, and the ground's liable to be a bit quicker here. The one I like was it's a wide open race. I'm going to take a chance on Dan Skelton's Ashtown Lad here. Now, he's only had 4 runs over fences and he's never gone beyond 3 miles, but he shapes like he'll stay, and he definitely wants decent ground. He's lightly raced for this season. They've laid him out for this race. And Eddie, he was an eye catcher, I thought, behind your horse last time out. All right, in a small field, maybe it's misleading, but he finished third behind a Hoy Senior, who certainly did nothing wrong for that form at Cheltenham. So I think Ashdown Lad's a very interesting runner. He's 16-1. The only thing I'll say, normally I bore on about backing each. I think this is a win-only bet, Ashdown Lad. He might not stay. You don't really want to be backing him to finish second, third or fourth. You might just do your money, and he's a non-stayer and he's pulled up. But I think he'll go really close if he does stay.
Yeah, Ashdown Lad for Stephen there for the Harry and Dan Skelton combination. Vincent, I'd like to bring you in here because Danny Mullins, Canny Danny, of course, who we had with us during the Cheltenham Festival, on board Stormy Judge here. On the side point, we should hopefully be getting Danny on next week to discuss all things entry in the Grand National. But this Stormy Judge, Vincent, for the Pat Fahey team, intriguing 7-year-old here.
He is, could be a little bit of a plot horse in it, in fairness. Last season they ran Mr. Fog Patches in this, and there was a bit of a gamble on it. Finished third in the race to Mighty Thunder. Stormy Judge, I can see that they've been thinking this race for a while, but I'm struggling with it. I think the ground is going to be a problem. I also think the trip is a potential problem. It stays 3 miles well enough, but 4 miles is a big ask. On this quicker ground, I'm not too sure. The other one in that, the same stable, Pat Fahey runs a horse here called History of Fashion. I really like this. There'll be a day in this in one of these staying chases. The problem is the horse has a little bit of a kink in him, tends to jump a little bit out to his right. The other thing is he's not a great jumper. When he settles down to it, he's not too bad, but he went over to the UK recently and made a few early errors and then unseated after only 4 or 5 fences. He's run well since in Ireland. I think if Philip Enright can get him settled into a rhythm out the back somewhere early on, he will be coming home. If he doesn't get in trouble early, he'll definitely stay the trip. I think he's worth a bet. I'd back him rather than Stormy Judge, even though Stormy Judge is a much shorter price. The other Irish one in here, Streets of Doyen, was 150 to 1 shot when it pulled up behind Long Press in the Brown Advisory in Cheltenham. I don't think that's any particular chance myself. It's a 25 to 1 chance. Deserves to be at least that.
Interesting. I'll say he's actually got some winning form at the track, hasn't he? Streets of Doyen. But as you say, disappointed, not just at Cheltenham, but on a couple of occasions before that as well. Yeah, a pretty wide open race, I think it's fair to say. I've gone 2v to field here with Fantastic Ass, who ran in the Ultimate at the Cheltenham Festival. The Twister Davis team, I still think he could be better than 1-4-3s unexposed. I wanted bigger prices. I quite like one more Flurry here for your red wine aficionados. But Ian Williams, Charlie Todd team up. Now, this horse ran in the Ultima as well. Disappointed he was down the field. However, if you look back through his profile, he's not a horse who goes particularly well fresh. So I think he would have needed that run to, funnily enough, get him spot on for this, if you see what I'm saying. Whereas with a few of the others in here, this perhaps is a bit of an afterthought. I actually think this would have been the plot all along. And last year, he ran at this meeting, absolutely bolted up in a handicap chase off £4 lower. So I thought 33 to 1, one more Flurry could pretty much go well at a price. That pretty much concludes Air. Going over to Newbury now for the EBF National 100 Mares Novices Hurdle, the Grade 2 here. Speech Bubble, Stephen, 100 to 30 for the Gavin Sheehan Noel Williams team. Corey's Courage for Aidan Coleman, Ollie Murphy 5s. Sabrina for Harry Cobden and Paul Nichols, 13 to 2. When then 10 to 1 bar. How are you going with this one, Stephen?
Yeah, well, first of all, a 16 runner handicap on a Saturday. If anybody wants a bit of 11 to 10, that all 16 turn up, I've got plenty to go. There's no way in the world they'll let 16 runners in the middle of a Saturday afternoon turn up. I've got boring again. I've gone for Speech Bubble. Right. I really, really liked her run at Sandown. Love Envoy of Harry Fry, really prolific mare. The form's working out superbly. And Speech Bubble is a free goer who got in a muck sweat earlier in the season when she won at Newbury here. And did plenty wrong that day. And again at Sandown, she was very free before the race and in the early stages, but she still finished second. I think in this big field, which I suspect will be about 15 runners by pure coincidence, she'll probably settle for the first time. Now, you sort of think top weight in these handicaps, not an easy task, but I think it's more about that she will probably settle for the first time, hopefully jump better. And I think she's a class apart from me. This is a really good race. So it's a good card on both Newbury and Air on Saturday. Got fascinating cards, which is a breath of fresh air because we've sat through midweek. The last couple of weeks have been pretty dismal. We've had 3 and 4 runner races on all the cards, basically because the ground's dried up and there's too much racing. But this is a cracking contest. As I say, I've gone for Speech Bubble, whether or not now sort of 4-1, 9-2, I think. Again, she's halved in price in the week, but she's the standout contender for me.
Yeah, and as you say, Stephen, it is. Instinctively, I was like, post-Cheltenham, Aintree not here. It's all a bit of a lull, but the action really is ramped up this weekend. Vincent, anything for you here?
Well, there's one interesting aspect to it is, as 3 of these ran in the Mares Novice Hurdle in Cheltenham, you've got Nina the Terrier, Tweed Skirt, and the Player Queen. The Player Queen pulled up. The other 2 finished 14th and 15th. What's somewhat interesting here, we know we've got this potential bounce factor from Cheltenham as well, but if you take it that Nina the Terrier finishes 14th, 2.5 lengths in front of Tweed Skirt. They were off levels that day. There's now a £7 swing in the weights in favour of Tweed Skirt. So you'd imagine Tweed Skirt should reverse form with Nina the Terrier. Nina the Terrier is an 8-1 chance. Tweed Skirt's 20-1. Makes no sense. Perhaps something each way on Tweed Skirt, if you can get maybe 5 places somewhere. If all 16 turn up, no doubt the bookmakers will be doing that. Maybe that's worth a little bit of a bet. But for me, I don't know enough about some of the English ones. I wouldn't put anyone off. Stephen's selection, Speech Bubble, looks to be good form.
I'm glad you said that, because you've teamed me up beautifully there, Vincent, because I'm with Nina the Terrier. So.
There you go. How do you beat Tweed Skirt?
Well, absolutely. I think it's all about ground, actually. I spoke to Alan King, funny enough, before the Cheltenham Festival, and he said Nina the Terrier is one of the most ground-dependent mares he's got in the yard. She must have a sound surface. Ground too deep at Sandown. Ground had gone for her at Cheltenham. I just went back on this surface. She chased home Love Envoy. She was a place behind Speech Bubble at Sandown, and that was on very deep ground. It was heavy that day, and you watch the race back, she actually travels well into contention, and then the legs go like jelly up the running. I just wonder, on a sound surface, at the time of recording, it is good to soft good in places. By and large, the weather looks okay for Newbury. Could be proper spring ground. I thought it 10-1. I think she'll travel well into the race. Whether she finds anything off the bridle or not, who knows? But a fascinating contest, I think it's fair to say. Right, Vincent, we've been utilising you on the for the English racing front, or the Scottish racing front, I should say. But you've been sitting very patiently in regards to action in Ireland. Leopardstown, wow, what a card it always is, and this year looks no exception.
We've got a great weekend racing in Ireland. We've got 3 meetings on. We've Leopardstown Saturday with all the Guineas Trials, Derby Trials, and then Sunday we've Cork on the flat and we've Fairyhouse over jumps. First looking at Leopardstown, the 2000 Guineas Trials, there's a horse of Aidan O'Brien's in this, Gloontown, and very well regarded. It was beaten by Native Trail. It's the only defeat it's had in 3 starts as a 2-year-old. It was beaten by Native Trail in the Dewhurst, but it stumbled leaving the stalls that day, finished 6th at 8. It then subsequently won a Group 3 at Leopardstown in October over this course and distance. It's the only previous course and distance winner of the race, but it looks a decent renewal, some nice horses in it. Gloontown is the most likely one. Then we look at the 1000 Guineas Trial. We've won here Sacred Bridge of Ger Lyons, which won its first 4 starts. Well back 13-8 favourite for the Cheveley Park Stakes in Newbury, but ran flat that day, finished 8th. There was no official excuse given, bar the fact that it ran flat, was all Colin Keane said afterwards. This is a very deep race. There's 8 horses rated 98 or higher going into it. So that looks like a good one. We'll certainly see some real decent fillies coming out of that, I'd say, for the rest of the season. And then we've got the Ballysack Stakes, which is the traditional Derby trial in Ireland. Doesn't look the greatest renewal on paper, but it could turn out to be something a bit better than that. We've got one of Dermot Wells called Duke de Sessa, which he regards this very highly. And it won here last season. It beat a horse called Pix Badil of Donica O'Brien's, which is also in the race. There's only a half a length between them in that Airfield Stakes. And the Pix Badil is now £3 better off. But of course, none of these have had a run this season, so we don't know what we're really dealing with. They could have improved stones or gone back stones, as far as we know. So if we move on then, just have a quick look at Sunday in Cork. A couple of interesting things here. The first one is Jamie Spencer rides. He turns up to ride. He's booked to ride in a maiden, a fillies maiden, the first one on the card for Fozzie Stack. He used to ride a course for his father, Tommy Stack, in Ireland. So it's interesting that Jamie Spencer comes back for that. It's had 2 runs last season, beaten both times, but obviously they expect something if Jamie Spencer's coming over for it. Then there's a good sprint, probably the best sprint we've seen in a while in Ireland, the listed sprint. There's a lot of good horses in it. Logo Hunter, Laugh a Minute, Mooniesta, Measure a Magic, Twilight Spinner. 6 of them rated 100 plus. There's some good horses in this. The only one that's had a recent run is Laugh a Minute. Won this race last year, incidentally, and won at the Curragh last weekend. I downgrade that form slightly. There was a lot of them in that race in the Cur that needed heavy ground, and so they weren't suited by the ground conditions. Having said that, Laugh Minute 1, we know it's fitting well. It's from a yard that's smashing in the winners everywhere, Ado McGuinness, so I wouldn't put anyone off it, but Logo Hunter would be the one. Probably has a bit more class if Logo Hunter is fit and ready to go. Over at Fairyhouse on Sunday, there's a couple of interesting races. Really strange thing here is the fact we've got 2 Grade 2 novice hurdles. One is over 2 miles, one is over 2.5. Several of the horses were entered in both. It's very similar conditions. Why they couldn't just make a 2.25 mile and have the one race and put it up for 80 grand instead of 40 grand in each, I don't know. But there's some interesting horses here. The 2.5 miler has been won previously by Alboom Photo, Acapella Bourgeois, Shane's Hill. This year, Willie Mullins has a couple of interesting ones in it. He's got a horse called Arctic Warrior, which he has said when it won the last day on heavy ground that it definitely needs better ground, so it'll be interesting to see how that gets on. The ground is currently good to yielding in Fairyhouse. Berkshire Royal is in it as well, a horse that came from Andrew Balding's for a lot of money, won well last summer, got beaten on a recent comeback, but he seems to have had problems with training that horse. But it's an interesting race. We've also got Falcon Flight in it, which was withdrawn at a late stage in Cheltenham. It got dehydrated and couldn't run in Cheltenham, but it won its maiden before that. A horse rated 110 on the flat, so that'll be interesting to see. It's a decent enough race. And then the other division, it's not even a division, the other Grade 2, which is over 2 miles. We've got a few interesting ones in that. We've got the Tide Turns, which finished down the field in the Boodles, was well fancied to Gordon Elliott, so see if that can bounce back. We've also got Flame Bearer, which is an impressive horse. It beat Micromanage 12 lengths to win a maiden over this course. The only problem is it has a £6 penalty for winning a Grade 2 the last day, so that'd possibly be enough to tilt you away from that. But an interesting weekend's action in Ireland.
Well, absolutely. I think you summed that up very well, concisely there, Vincent. I was just looking at that Ballysack Stakes. Henry de Bromhead, 50-25 to 1 outside of the field. If that goes in, I think a few trainers are just going to hand their licenses in and just give up, won't they? If that goes in, look out for Venus Senna, unbeaten Venus Senna for Henry de Bromhead in the Group 3 Ballysack Stakes at Leopardstown on Saturday. That's at 3:45. Yeah, excellent. So that is the weekend's action summed up. Now we're going to have a look to the tips of the week. Well, Stephen, you've been in flying form over the last couple of months or so, and where are we going to go for this weekend's best bets then?
Up to Scotland for me, Ed, in the 225, the Scottish champion hurdle, Milkwood, we've touched on already. I think he's around 4 or 9 to 2. Been laid out for the race, 6 months off, a big positive against horses who've been on the go all winter. Good ground ideal. I think murdered them for speed after the last under a confident ride. And in the big one, the Scottish National 335, I think Ashdown lad, win only, 14, 16, probably bigger on the exchanges. I think he's worth chancing. I think he's well handicapped, and I think he should relish the step up in trip. Good ground's what he wants. Harry's up. Hopefully he'll be really positive and ride him like he'll definitely stay. I thought he was a big eye catcher behind Ahoy Senor, and he can improve past some more exposed sluggards.
Absolutely. Best luck with those sluggards like that. Yeah, that's got to go in the dictionary. And Vincent, for yourself?
Yeah, I've got 3. The first one is Gloontown in the 2000 Guineas Trial in Leopardstown. It's a 2:35 on Saturday. It's a course and distance winner. Would be unbeaten, possibly, only for the fact that it stumbled out of stalls against the good horse Native Trail. Mightn't have beaten that, I presume, but at the same time, it's looked a fair horse. It's a course and distance winner, the only one in the field. It's Aidan O'Brien. You'd expect big things here later in the season, so I'd be disappointed if that didn't win. Another one on the Leopardstown card is in a mile handicap, a horse called Stara Cashel. This was well fancied last week for the Irish Lincoln, back from 18s into 10s. It was its first run for Ado McGuinness. It come from Fozzie Stacks. It just faded late on that day. This is a much lower grade race. Hopefully it's improved its fitness from the last day. It looked like it was just fitness that told in the closing stages. It's now £1 lower as well. Be very disappointed if that's not involved. And then the other one, just as a token gesture, in the Scottish National, this History of Fashion at Pat Fahey's. If it gets into a rhythm jumping, I'll be disappointed if it's not involved at the finish. It's a nice each way price.
Brilliant. Some interesting selections there for Vincent. Very quickly, I'm going with 4 for the weekend. I'm with Nina the Terrier. In the mares at race 2:45 at Newbury. Purely needs the ground. The reins must stay away. Otherwise, I think if the ground does turn soft, she just won't run. As straightforward as that. And then I've got 3 at Ayr. I'll go with 2 versus the field in the Scottish National. I mentioned before, fantastic ass each way, and one more flurry each way at a big price for the Ian Williams team. Made the case for those earlier on. And then in the 4:10 at Ayr, Getaway Trump is the outsider of the field for Paul Nicholls and Bryony Frost. I thought was a little bit overpriced. Horse who's got previous winning form at Ayr, ground to be fine. Has looked a little bit out of love with the game, it has to be said, but as a consequence has absolutely plummeted down the weight. So it was a mid-150s horse at his peak over hurdles, gets in the off 137. I thought, every horse has his price and has his handicap mark, so definitely not one to write off as the outsider of the field for the champion trainer. But many thanks to Vincent and to Stephen. I suppose what we did before we go, what you got planned for the weekend, Stephen? You watching in live in the loft, or you? Are you out and about?
Saturday I'll be watching it, Ed, but Sunday I'm going to Plumpton, so hopefully the weather will stay fair. It's only small fields, and they need some rain down there. They've had a bit of snow early in the week, but like Plumpton on a Sunday. Good fun.
Great stuff, isn't it? Lovely little course, Plumpton. Vincent, yourself?
Yeah, I'll watch all the racing I can anyway. That's the first thing. The only other thing I have planned for the weekend is try and teach the dog to walk up a ramp to get into the car. That's the only thing I have to do. She's an old Labrador, an old chocolate Labrador, and she's 12 now, riddled with arthritis. She loves going out for a walk. We live beside the Curragh. She loves going out onto the Curragh, but she can't actually walk there. She needs to be driven there, and she can't get into the car. So I bought her a ramp the other day, and she won't get on it. So I've got to train her over the weekend. That's my dog training task for the weekend.
I was going to say, you're going to take out your training license, Vincent. It's never too old, neither the dog nor yourself. Oh, fantastic. Well, a variety of things going on at the weekend then. But thank you very much for watching at home. Of course, if you do like to have a bet, please do gamble responsibly. Keep up to date with irishracing.com for all the latest news and features. Of course, don't forget to check out all of Stephen's tips on bettingexpert.com. Join us again next week, where we will be really building up and ramping up the action to all things entry with the Grand National at Liverpool on the horizon now. Thanks for watching once again. Bye for now.